Hey guys, how are we doing? Before we get started, grab a snack, take a seat. Your favorite show is on, and that is me. So today's podcast, what is our episode about? You may be wondering. So today we're going to be talking about the double lifestyle. Maybe you think you're like a spy or something dangerous going on. Nah, let's keep it, Mexican American related. So today's topic is the Mexican American lifestyle border edition. I live in Matamoros, Tamaulipas, which is connected to Brownsville, Texas, through a bridge. Not necessarily connected, but you get me, you get me. So, being a Mexican American completely changed my lifestyle, or at least what was projected to be my lifestyle, right? So, let's talk about personal experiences. My life at home, it was strict, still is strict. Not as much because I'm a little older now, but you know, parents still rule, sister, brother, we're still inferior to them, right? So, the language. What do I speak at my house? Spanish and English. Hey, we don't discriminate, right? So when I spoke to my parents, it was always Spanish because my parents they never learned the English. They never tried to because they weren't, required to. So that was something. There was a little barrier. There were sometimes where I would speak to my mom and I'd mix a word, or there was sometimes I couldn't even pronounce a word in Spanish because I've been practicing English for so long. But we got that fixed because we're not gonna be no sabos here. My little accent just slipped, and that made me look like a Nosawa. But it doesn't matter. So the food. Let's talk about the food at my home, where I come from. So in Matamoros, we eat a lot of taquitos, tortas, gorditas, tostadas, sopes. Everything you may think of, we eat it, right? And it's different from the American culture where they eat burgers, hot dogs, wings. Don't get me wrong, they're still delicious. So, let's move on to something a little more personal, which is home. How was my life outside of home? Um, if I'm being honest, I didn't have much friends here in Matamoros, so every time I went to school, I'd have a chance to talk to my friends because living in Matamoros and studying in the U.S., um, it became complicated, a little more complicated as I grew up. So when I was here in Matamoros, I had no one. I mean, there was no one to go out with or even talk to or even play with, right? So my life outside of school, well, outside of home first, right? Was school, and at school I'd get to see a friend or two, um, but I didn't have that many friends because I made it difficult. I didn't know much English at first, and I encountered a little bit. Those douche that they'll make fun of you because you don't know something like a word or even know how to read. But we got that down, of course. So the expectations, since I lived basically in school, it was you have to do good in school. You have to learn, you have to listen, and you have to see. You see to learn, you listen to learn as well. Right? So the American culture was different from what I experienced. I mean, the American culture, rock, different music, different places. Everything's so different over there. Right? So it's like, since everything's so different, you have to learn how to code switch. Like, you have to learn that some things may be accepted over there, but they may not be accepted over here. And that is totally fine. That is the reality of, you know, many living this type of lifestyle, a double lifestyle. All right. So let's talk about the family and the sacrifices. Right. So I come from a family of five. My dad, my mom, uh, me. Well, not me. I go at last, of course. My brother, my sister, and me. I'm the youngest. My brother Jose is 25 and he's the oldest. My sister Alejandra, she's 21 and I'm 18. And in this family, where we're taught, different values, important values that I still carry with me, which is respect. Always respect people. And, in school they'll tell you, treat people how you want to be treated. That may not be the case, you know, almost most of the time. Some people will still be mean to you, but whatever. That doesn't bother me. I stay respectful because that's how it is. Loyalty, loyalty. Always give out your loyalty. Don't expect it back. It might not happen, right? Being hardworking and dedicated. You have to put everything that you can into whatever you do. 110%. Even a million. Because 110, anyone can do it. You got to put the 1 million% in. So let's talk about, you know, this beautiful family that I got. They taught me a lot of things. And I've gone through a lot of things. And every holiday that I spent with them, it was special, right? In the American lifestyle, it's a birthday party. You go to Chuck E. Cheese or Mr. Gaddy's or Peter Piper Pizza, and here in my home, Matamoros, you don't get to experience it. We do things a little more the old way. Well, at least that's how we see it. So let me show you something right here. I don't know if it's focusing, but I don't know if you can see it. But there's a huge Spider-Man cake. This is my brother, my older brother, my mother, and you don't see no fancy lights in the background. You don't see a big mouse. You don't see anything, right? You don't see games, nothing. This is the old way. This is what I'm used to. This is what I grew up with. Right. So there's like cake, my little brother. That's how you celebrate a birthday here. It's quite different from what you see usually in the American culture, right? So let's move on into something deeper, which is the personal sacrifices that my parents did. So my mother and my father, they always sent me to the U.S. to study. Going from kindergarten, I completed kindergarten here in Matamoros, and after I was done, they sent me first grade and on to the United States. Why? Because they wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to have better opportunities that were provided here. They always my father always says, you already have more than me simply by knowing English, simply by having studied over there. And they always encouraged me and my brothers and everyone around because we're a loving family, right? They always encouraged me to keep going, even if it was a little difficult. Right? So, when I first started going to the United States for school, I started in first grade. I didn't know anything in English. I didn't know what a joke was. Someone made fun of me and they're like, "It's a joke." I said, "Joke? What's a joke?" They're like, "Oh, un chiste." I'm like, "Okay." So I learned that word, and that's how you start picking up new language. It's kind of cool, but it took me quite a while to learn the English language. So Spanish being my first language, it made it difficult to understand what these kids were saying, even if they weren't saying anything rude. It still made it difficult for me to understand. And once I picked it up and I practiced it every day for quite a bit of time, it became difficult to even talk because I would mix some words with the English and Spanish and the Spanglish, and it was a whole chaos of language, right? So that's what happened in my experience. And at home, it was you're forced to talk Spanish because my parents they don't know Spanish. I mean English. They don't know English, and they're not gonna learn. They don't want to learn. Spanish is the only language they want. So I had to code switch. If I was at school, I'd speak English. If I was at home, I'd speak Spanish. Simple as that. So in that kind of caused that kind of moved me on to the identity issue that I faced for a little while. It's like it felt a little out of place sometimes. At school, it's like I'm talking English when I'd prefer to be talking Spanish, right? And it's like, but this language, it's gonna be it's gonna be in my life for for my entire life. It's gonna be here, so I have to embrace. I have to learn it. I have to master it because one, it's helpful. Two, it's good to be bilingual, and three, it's we need the most benefits we can get. So learning another language was pretty good. It was pretty helpful, and up to date, it's still pretty good. It's been helping me a lot. So some, but of course, this double lifestyle, it's gonna bring challenges, right? We're gonna be expected to do good in. I bit my time. Sorry. We're gonna be expected to be good in school, to not cause any trouble, because if I cause trouble, who was gonna pick me up? My parents couldn't cross, and if I cause trouble, no one can do anything about it. I never got picked up from school. No one ever signed anything in person. I've never even been to a teacher meeting conference because I didn't have that privilege, right? And the expectation of being good was always there. So, with this constant pressure, there's always some issues, right? I was expected to be good, and my parents they had to deal with the financial burden of sending me to school in the United States because it wasn't cheap. They paid transportation, $80 a week, every single week because they couldn't cross themselves, right? And so it was like they had to work super extra days. My dad, he barely even rest. He would work even Sundays, right? Thank goodness that my dad's job allowed him to send all three of us to school. He invested in us. He built the house. So his sacrifice wasn't in vain. He did more than anyone has done for me in my life. And until today, I recognize that. So one of the issues was the financial issues. My dad took care of that. Another issue was discrimination. I got there not knowing English. I was a little kid, a little Mexican kid that just spoke pure Spanish. It was like a little, it was meant to be. I was meant to get bullied at a certain point. Um, I didn't understand much at first, but what can I do about that, right? So the let's talk about how in mask you see how there's trouble with identity. It's like we don't belong somewhere, but we still go over that and we make it our home. Right? I didn't make it my home, but I learned to be comfortable within those barriers. English started to get easier. I started to know how to joke. Um, I knew I started to learn new things just simply by learning. I mean, simply by hearing. I'd watch movies in English with Spanish subtitles that helped me really pick up the language. Actually, um, so I learned how to be me, how to be one with the people. So there was a lot of growth throughout my entire journey, right? I became confident in who I was. It's like nothing really bothers me anymore. I know how to joke. I get good with people. Like I'm good with people. Um, you know, I learned how to be comfortable in both of these cultures. When I'm home, I eat tacos, carne asada. When I'm in the U.S., I eat burgers, hot dogs, corn, you name it. And it's like I enjoy both of these lifestyles now. They don't bother me. They don't. There's nothing wrong with them. It's part of my life. I'm Mexican American, and I embrace it. Right. So coming from a Mexican household, my work ethic is pretty high. I like to say. During, during high school, I had several jobs um, because I wanted to buy things for myself and give a little bit to the house because we all help each other here. So now that I look at it, I always got to remember where I come from. Can't forget, I come from Matamoros. I'm Mexican first before anything. So I have to preserve my traditions, right? Everything that I do is for my family. So let's keep it at that. And I am lucky to have the privilege of living this double lifestyle. So let's give a little recap of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I hope you connected and said, oh, he's like me. We're all like each other, right? So, identity, it's been a tough patch, but you'll get over it as the more and more you do. The more you focus on yourself, and you learn to be comfortable. Family, it's always there. Keep it there. Do not do anything bad to it. The expectations, keep your expectations high. Your pride, keep it high too. You come from where you come from, so embrace it. Living both of these worlds was a blessing in disguise, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode because I sure did. Thank you.